paraphrase of a quote from Frederick Douglass, a great hero of the United States, who, by the way, spoke at least 3 times, 4 miles down the road in Jonesboro at the Friends meeting. The existence of slavery in this country brands your form of government as a sham, your humanity as a base pretense, and your Christianity as a lie. It destroys your moral power abroad. It corrupts your politicians at home. It saps the foundation of religion. It makes your name a byword to the mocking earth. It is the antagonistic force in your government, the only thing that seriously disturbs and endangers your union. This was a speech given in 1850, the meaning of the 4th of July to a black man. As a student of American history and as a historian of our city and county, I have come to believe that this statement defines the core issue of racism, namely white supremacy, sometimes known under its less menacing name as white entitlement. This presentation proposes to examine 3 critical topics in the history of our community in light of Douglass's claims. I might add I could have chosen more, but I will focus on 3. Grant County churches can claim to early and significant anti-slavery activity. Both the Friends and the Wesleyan denominations worked for abolition. Only the Wesleyans were really integrationists. By the beginning of the 20th century, at least one major Friends meeting in Marion was the center of Ku Klux Klan activity. Daisy Barr of Fairmount, enrolled Quaker pastor, was a national figure and organizer for the women of the Klan. Klan activity was present in other local congregations throughout the 1920s. The church in Grant County chose silence on race matters, extending from total silence on the horrific racial tension of the public lynching in 1930 through the local manifestation of the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Congregations ostracized the occasional clergy member or layperson attempting to address matters of racial justice. None spoke out against the widespread segregation of the community that continued through the 1970s. In education, both local universities have been open to African American admissions from their inception in the 19th century. In recent years, Taylor and Indiana Wesleyan have made efforts to encourage minority participation. However, these efforts have had minimal effect. Problems of discrimination by students and community members toward minority students and faculty continue. The college communities in general remain either lethargic or indifferent to racism, or, as in recent years, rising to the occasion only in response to egregious incidents. Recent events have shown greater efforts to confront institutional racism and to move beyond crisis management. Public schools in the county were segregated from their inception. It's sort of ironic that the first civil rights legislation mandating the integration of schools in Indiana was done in the 1870s by John Ratliff, who was superintendent of public instruction and a Quaker from Grant County. Unfortunately, there was no enforcement provision. The practice of segregation in the public school was compounded by school consolidations of the 1960s, when school planners managed to create 4 county school systems with only Marion having anything other than the occasional minority student. Marion schools for many years practiced a form of internal segregation using districting predominantly white or black elementary schools. Marion High School was open to African Americans since its inception. However, internal separation of the races was practiced by various means, such as separate dressing facilities, rigid tracking systems, and race-based disciplinary policies. The high school's first black teacher was hired on staff in the early 1960s, even though African American students had attended since 1870s, which was a prior institution prior to the present Marion High School. There has been some progress in breaking down racial barriers, but racial matters still occur. Minority staffing is woefully inadequate, and the number of black parents are still largely disaffected from school activities. At the center of race relations in the communities is the crime of 1930, the Marion lynching. In response to the murder of a white man, 3 alleged assailants, also accused of raping his female companion, the female companion of the murdered man, were arrested. They were taken to the Grant County Jail. At the jail, a crowd of whites assaulted and killed 2 of the black men, took their bodies to the courthouse square, and hung them from a tree in the presence of a large white mob. The 3rd man barely escaped with his life. No one was prosecuted for this crime. Members of the lynch mob continued to live and work with impunity in Grant County into the 1970s. The government of Grant County, the city of Marion, and the state of Indiana failed to protect and to deliver justice to the African American community. As recently as 2014, a major racial incident occurred when a white fire department training officer displayed a noose to his African American colleagues. The local social media then exploded with racist rhetoric. Time does not permit a fuller accounting of continued episodes of the workings of white privilege in the local community. I shall end where I began with another quote by Frederick Douglass. Slavery, read racism, slavery, like all other great systems of wrong, founded in the depths of human selfishness and existing for ages, has not neglected its own conservation. It has steadily exerted an influence upon all around it favorable to its own continuance, and today is so strong that it could exist not only without law, but even against the law. Customs, manners, morals, and religion are all on its side everywhere. Frederick Douglass, writing in 1870, 7 years after the abolition of slavery. 5 years.